My son forgot to hang up the phone after calling me. And that's when I heard it, the conversation that changed everything. He was laughing with Amanda, my daughter-in-law, as she said the words that made my blood run cold. She believes you. The meds are working. Soon, she won't even remember her own name. That's when I knew I wasn't paranoid. I was being poisoned. Slowly, quietly, methodically. And what I did next, well, it would unravel everything they had so carefully planned. If you're watching this, subscribe. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from. My name is Margaret Harrison. Most people call me Maggie. I'm 62, and I built a multi-million-dollar interior design empire from the ground up. From second-hand clothes and store-brand cereal to a mansion in Westchester County. I made it. But lately, something felt off. You know those small, humiliating moments that make you wonder if you're slipping? Glasses in the fridge. Missed appointments. The phone looking more alien than familiar. Add a few medications to the mix, and suddenly you're fumbling through your own life like it's someone else's. Still, I always prided myself on being sharp. My memory was my secret weapon. I could recall every client's color scheme, every supplier's invoice, every project timeline. My mind built my empire. And then David came back into my life. After 15 years of silence, 15 years since he chose his father during the ugliest divorce you could imagine. He just showed up at my door. He hadn't spoken to me since he called me a selfish witch in the courthouse hallway while reporters scribbled every word. He picked Robert's side and never looked back. I thought Robert's sudden heart attack last year might bring David around. It didn't. No call, no visit, not even a sympathy card. Then, 2 months ago, there he was, smiling like he'd never vanished. And with him, Amanda, his wife, pretty, blonde, in her early 30s, worked in healthcare apparently, said all the right things, said them like she'd practiced. Life's too short to stay angry, she said, laying it on thick. And like a fool who's lonely and desperate, I believed them. I welcomed them in. I should have slammed the door shut, but I didn't, because deep down, I wanted to believe my son had come back. I wanted to believe people change. I had one backup plan, a prepaid flip phone hidden in my bedroom, a habit from the old days. Call it paranoia, call it preparation. Either way, it would save me. Amanda slid into my routine like she'd always belonged there. Noticed my meds. You seem a little scattered, she said, eyeing my prescriptions like a predator watching prey. She reorganized everything. Color-coded pillboxes, laminated schedules, even introduced new cognitive supplements, blue capsules that could have been anything. These are from Dr. Martinez, she said. They'll help with memory. They helped all right. Helped knock me out. Drowsy, disoriented, foggy. But Amanda assured me, that's just your brain adjusting. Meanwhile, David dove into my finances. Mom, some of these investments are a little too aggressive for someone your age. Translation, let's soften things up so they're easier to snatch. He talked me into letting a financial planner review everything. I agreed, stupidly. Then Sarah, my loyal assistant of 12 years, was overwhelmed and stressed. David suggested we streamline operations. Within weeks, she was gone. Then came the pitch. We're spending a lot of time driving here, David said. What if we moved into the guest wing, just until your health stabilizes? I should have run. Instead, I thanked them. Now they were living under my roof, managing my medication, running my business, watching me, controlling me. And then I started to fade. Some days I couldn't finish a sentence. I'd forget where I was, what I was doing. My thoughts were like pages torn out of a book. I was scared. David suggested I get evaluated. Amanda had kept detailed notes on my symptoms. They booked an appointment with a new doctor, Dr. Miller. Not my longtime physician, no, a new one. A stranger. Dr. Miller ran his tests and delivered the hammer. Mild cognitive impairment. Early signs of dementia. Could progress. Dementia. The same disease that took my mother. I saw my future vanish in that word. Amanda handled my meds, adjusted dosages. The drowsiness means it's working, she'd say, like I was 5 years old. Your brain is just getting better support. But I wasn't stupid. I saw the pattern. David reappears after 15 years, and suddenly I'm losing my grip. No, this was a setup, and I needed proof. So I played along. I started hiding pills, flushing them, pretending to forget. The fog began to lift. I could think again, and what I discovered chilled me to the bone. One afternoon, David called me, just to check in. We hung up, or so he thought. He hadn't disconnected. And I heard everything. "She's totally buying it," David laughed. Then Amanda, "The meds are working perfectly. Dr. Miller says we can increase the dose next month. Soon she won't even remember her name." My stomach turned. "How long do you think?" David asked. 3 months, maybe 4. Then we can declare her incompetent. Transfer everything. The facility's ready after the holidays. I sat there in silence, shaking. My own son, plotting to erase me. But I wasn't going down without a fight. Now that I had proof, it was time to expose everything. And just like that, it all made sense. The restructuring of my business, the papers I'd signed without much thought, routine they said, was nearly complete. Once everything was filed, the holding company would gain full control. David actually laughed. I could hear it, clear as day. He was proud of it. 2.7 million in liquid assets, plus the house, plus the business, he bragged. My gambling debts? Gone. Just like that. Gambling debts. That's what brought my darling son back to me. Not love, not guilt, not family. No, he was drowning in debt, and the sharks were circling. But good old Mum had an estate fat enough to silence them all. As I sat there, listening to them casually lay out the destruction of my life, like they were planning a vacation, I felt it. Humiliation, anger, and something else. Awakening, like a slap across the face that shakes you out of a dream. That's when I knew. They'd underestimated me. And that was going to be their biggest mistake. Because Maggie Harrison wasn't finished, planning a counterattack while pretending to be a confused old woman is like solving a jigsaw puzzle in the dark while the table's on fire. Difficult, yes, but not impossible. Especially when rage fuels every move you make. The next few days were delicate. I needed more proof, but I had to play my role perfectly. One slip, and they'd speed things up, or worse. So when they left one afternoon for errands, which probably meant bribing doctors or finalizing paperwork, I slipped into David's makeshift office in the guest wing. What I found nearly knocked the wind out of me. Power of attorney documents, signed by me. Business transfer forms, printouts detailing accelerated cognitive decline and requirements for involuntary commitment. They'd been planning this since before Robert died. Every step, choreographed to make me disappear. I took photos of everything with my hidden prepaid phone, then hid the originals in places they'd never think to look. Inside books, taped under drawers, even tucked into the lining of an old handbag. But I needed more than documents. I needed someone I could trust. And thanks to David and Amanda, I didn't have many of those left. They'd replaced everyone. My financial advisor, gone. Sarah, my assistant of 12 years, replaced with a temp. Even my doctor had been swapped for Amanda's hand-picked puppet. That's when I remembered. The safety deposit box. My paranoid old lady plan from the days of my divorce. Under my maiden name at a separate bank, it held $5,000 in cash and the contact info for Marcus Chen, a private investigator who helped me back when Robert thought fidelity was optional. I waited for their weekly grocery run, called a cab from my burner phone, and slipped out. At the bank, I retrieved the stash. The teller gave me a wary look, disheveled hair, trembling hands, but let me through. I called Marcus from a payphone. Yes, they still exist, if you know where to look. Maggie Harrison. His voice was older, but still sharp. 15 years and you only call when the sky's falling. What is it this time? I told him everything. Well, as much as I could, given I was still half-drugged most days. Elder abuse, fraud, conspiracy, he said slowly. This is serious, Maggie, but we have to be careful. If they catch on, I know, I said. If they suspect anything, they'll accelerate their plans, or worse. He promised he'd start digging immediately. But it'll take time, he warned, at least 6 weeks to build a solid case. When I got back, David and Amanda were waiting in the foyer, faces tight with panic. Mom, where were you? David snapped, trying to mask his fear with concern. We were worried sick. I let my shoulders slump and my voice shake. I thought I was going to the office to see Sarah, but I got lost. Their relief was so obvious it was insulting. Amanda came over, all fake sympathy. Sweetie, you can't go out alone anymore. It's too dangerous. That night they added another pill to my regimen. I palmed it, like always, and the clock kept ticking. For the next month, Marcus worked methodically, building the case, interviewing people, pulling medical records. What he uncovered chilled me. The pills Amanda gave me contained mild sedatives and drugs known to cause memory confusion in the elderly. Not enough to knock me out, but enough to blur the lines between reality and fiction. Enough to make anyone watching believe I was slipping. Amanda's medical credentials? Fake. She'd lost her last job for stealing medication. Everything since then had been lies. David's financial problems were catastrophic. He owed nearly $3 million to men who didn't take IOUs, the kind who break fingers and ask questions later. But the worst part? Marcus found a nearly identical case in Phoenix 2 years ago. Elderly woman, mysterious mental decline. Family takes over her assets. She dies quietly in a memory care facility. No one asked questions. We weren't dealing with amateurs. We were dealing with predators. 2 weeks later, Marcus called with a warning. They're accelerating. My contact at the FBI says we need just a little more time, maybe 4 hours. Can you stall? And that's when the real storm hit. David walked in the next morning, beaming like he'd just won the Nobel Peace Prize. We found the perfect facility, Mom. Serenity Gardens. They specialize in progressive memory care. Serenity Gardens. The same place Marcus said was a glorified prison with lavender paint and zero oversight. I don't want to leave my home, I said, voice trembling. This is my life. I built this. Mom, David said gently, you need help. We'll visit every day. Sure, right after you drain my accounts. But then, Amanda got a phone call. I was pretending to nap in the living room when I heard her voice spike. What do you mean someone's been asking questions? Silence. If someone's investigating, we need to move now, today. David tried to calm her, but the panic was leaking through his words. She doesn't have anyone left. There's no way. I texted Marcus. They're moving today. He replied instantly. Stall. I need 4 hours, 4 hours. That's all. Amanda rushed to call Serenity Gardens and pulled some strings. We'll bring her in today under emergency admittance. David turned to me. Mom, we have to take you to the hospital. You had a serious episode this morning. I raised my eyes, blinking slowly. I did? Yes, Amanda said softly, like a snake charming prey. You were very confused. I shuffled to my chair and collapsed into it like a sack of bones. I'm scared, I whispered. I don't want to leave. I haven't packed. They pushed. I resisted. And so began the most important 4 hours of my life. I don't understand, I said, playing my part with trembling confusion. Why can't I see Dr. Peterson first? For 30 precious minutes, I acted like the frail, frightened old woman they thought they'd broken. Stalling them, pushing back just enough to delay without triggering suspicion. David and Amanda were clearly agitated, checking their phones every few minutes, like teenagers waiting on texts. I want to call my lawyer, I said suddenly, reaching for the phone. David stepped in fast. Mom, you don't have a lawyer anymore, remember. We simplified your legal affairs last month. Had they? The fog they'd engineered made it hard to know what I had or hadn't signed, but something told me I hadn't simplified anything. They had. Then David's mask dropped. Enough, we're going now, he snapped. Stop being difficult, get in the car. He tried to lift me from my chair, but I went limp, dead weight, like a sack of wet cement. I want to speak to Dr. Peterson first, I protested. He knows me, my history. Amanda's eyes flashed. Dr. Peterson doesn't understand your condition, she said, her tone laced with venom. He's too old to keep up with modern treatment. That was the moment the performance ended. Not for them, but for me. That's when I stopped pretending this was about concern. They'd stopped seeing me as a person a long time ago. As they finally wrestled me into David's car, I caught him on the phone. The package is proving difficult to move, he muttered. Yeah, we're still coming, just delayed. She's more resistant than usual. The package. That's what I had become to my own son. A burden, an obstacle, a package to ship away and forget. The ride to Serenity Gardens felt like being driven to my own funeral by the two people who were supposed to love and protect me. At the facility, a woman named Mrs. Walsh greeted us with a forced smile. Mrs. Harrison, I apologize for the emergency admission, but I assure you we'll take excellent care of you. I could see it in her eyes, uncertainty. She sensed something was wrong. As she prepared the standard sedative cocktail, a dose meant to keep difficult patients compliant, David couldn't help but try to control the moment. "Make sure she gets the full dose," he said sharply. "She's been combative today." Mrs. Walsh paused. "Sir, our protocol usually—" "Just do what you're paid to do," Amanda snapped. And that's when it happened. The sound of car doors outside, boots on gravel, voices with purpose, the kind of sound you don't mistake for anything but authority. I sat up straighter in the chair. "Actually," I said, my voice strong, clear, cutting through the room like a blade, "I think there's been a mistake." Silence fell, thick, heavy, still. David's face turned ashen. Amanda's mouth dropped open. "What did you say?" David whispered. I turned and looked him dead in the eye, and for the first time in months I smiled. Not the vacant, confused smile I'd worn like armor, but a sharp, defiant grin. I said there's been a mistake. A very big mistake. Right on cue, Marcus strode through the door with federal agents at his side. He looked like justice itself. "Federal agents," Marcus announced. "Step away from Mrs. Harrison." David panicked. "She's mentally incompetent. We have legal documentation. She can't make decisions." Amanda shoved a folder into an agent's hand. "Medical evaluations, power of attorney, all legal. She's not of sound mind." For a heartbeat I worried. The agents hesitated, radioing in the situation. Amanda's paperwork looked legitimate. But then Marcus stepped forward, holding out a sleek recording device. "Agents," he said calmly. "You'll want to hear this." And then their own voices filled the room. David and Amanda, laughing, discussing my memory loss, the drugs, the plan to move me, the timeline to transfer assets, their words, crystal clear. No denial, no room for interpretation. Mrs. Walsh's face went pale. She slowly set the syringe down. David stammered, "You recorded us?" I looked at him, calm and cold. "Sweetheart," I said, mimicking Amanda's condescension, "you should never underestimate a confused old woman. We're full of surprises." The room erupted. Amanda lunged for the syringe. David grabbed my arm again in desperation. "She's hallucinating. She's dangerous. She needs immediate sedation," Amanda screamed. But no one was listening anymore. Mrs. Walsh backed away and called security. Federal agents stepped in, restraining both of them. Handcuffs clicked like punctuation marks. "This is a misunderstanding," Amanda shouted, her final lie. "We love her." Their lies disintegrated beneath the weight of their own words. As they were being led away, Amanda turned her head, eyes burning with hatred. "This isn't over," she hissed. "David's creditors will come for you next. You haven't won. You've just delayed the inevitable." She was right, partially. Their prison sentences didn't erase the danger. David's debts didn't vanish. But for the first time in months, I felt like myself again. My mind was clear. My instincts sharp. And Maggie Harrison had never backed down from a fight. In court, justice was swift. David received 15 years for fraud, elder abuse, and conspiracy. Amanda got 12, plus a federal ban from ever working in healthcare again. Dr. Miller lost his license and was sentenced to 3 years. Mrs. Walsh was cleared, but lost her job for negligence. Turns out they'd done this before. 3 other victims, all elderly. Only my case had enough proof to prosecute. But justice wasn't the end of my story. 3 years later, I sit in my new office at the Harrison Protection Foundation. Jake Morrison, Marcus's grandson, helps run our growing operation. We work around the clock to help families facing what I faced: manipulation, abuse, theft disguised as care. In just a few years, we've helped 93 families reclaim their lives. We've trained police, we've partnered with doctors, we've changed laws. Last year, Dr. Sarah Chen, the brilliant geriatrician who helped me recover, joined our advisory board. She's now training doctors to spot abuse, just like I endured. I never remarried, never adopted Jake as a son, never got a fairy tale ending, but I built something better. A legacy, a mission, a weapon against those who think age equals weakness. Last year, I got a letter from David, prison stationery. Cheap paper, bad penmanship, filled with scripture and shallow apologies. A request for forgiveness and financial help. I read it once, then filed it in the trash, because some bridges deserve to burn. What I've learned is simple. Family isn't always blood. It's the people who stand by you when it matters. People like Marcus, Jake, Dr. Chen. They tried to erase me. Instead, I became something stronger. And that, well, that's the sweetest revenge of all. So if you've made it this far, thank you. And if you've ever been underestimated, remember this. A woman who's built an empire once, she can build a fortress the second time. And this one? It's built to protect. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you've got a story of your own, I'm listening. Your voice matters. You matter. Always.